Hello. I am finally recording my son's birth story. I feel like I do this with all my kids. I wait a few years and then I have this moment where I think, oh my gosh, I haven't even recorded their birth story, and I want to make sure that I have it in my memories. I'm not the best at journaling, so this is like my one way to record what I remember about their birth. So this is a recording of all the memories I have regarding my pregnancy and the birth of my son, Golden. And I will just kind of start from my own like notes that I've taken. But anyway, okay, so Golden is my second child, and he was, whereas his sister was not planned, like planned but not planned. It's really tricky for me to get pregnant with his sister, Lucy. So when I got pregnant with Golden, like I was like I was teaching school at the time, and I knew I had to be on a really strict schedule, so I could only really have a baby at the end of the school year. So I was like, okay, got to get pregnant, you know, like late summer, beginning of school year, so that way I could be pregnant all year long as I teach, and then yeah, have the baby at the end of the school year. So anywho, um when we got pregnant, we thought the first month I was pregnant. I wasn't. Might have been a miscarriage. I don't know. It was one of those tricky situations. So I knew if I had miscarried, which I thought I had, um, the best time to start trying is like the next month following, immediately following. So that's what I did. So when I kind of like, moms have this feeling, usually, where you kind of know when you're pregnant. And you don't really need a test to tell you. You're kind of like, okay, I know. So I knew I was pregnant with Golden like pretty early on. And when I took the pregnancy test, I was like, oh, those overwhelming feelings. You're just like, well, what's going on? Anyway, eventually went and got an ultrasound. My doctor was located down in Ogden, and so for every single appointment, sorry, I'm refreshing my computer because it has my notes, even though I haven't taken notes of any of this. This is just memory, but so far. So my doctor was down in Ogden. She was wonderful. Really, actually, I really did like her. My first OB with my daughter, like her and I probably weren't the best fit, but anyway, that's a different story. So I really liked my doctor in Ogden, and so we lived in Wyoming at the time, and I drive down to Utah, Ogden every week. Well, not, you know how pregnancy goes. It's like your appointments basically get closer together, but at the beginning it was just like, going down there, getting an ultrasound, all the things. And as the pregnancy went on, I just remember looking at Golden's ultrasound and just thinking how adorable that ultrasound was. And it's funny now looking at the ultrasound of Golden and to his now profile and how he looks, it's so similar. It's crazy. He's just adorable. Anyway, so at the beginning of my pregnancy, this is where I'm going to start kind of looking at some notes. But anyway, at the beginning of my pregnancy, I tested for something called Rh factor. And I'm not an expert on Rh factor, but basically this is where antibodies, I'm going to read it here. It's where antibodies are made in the woman's body. They cross the placenta and attack the blood cells of the baby. I was super scared. And I was freaking out, and you're supposed to get shots for it. So it's like done through a blood test. Anyway, I ended up later on, I think I got tested again. Like I had another blood test, and I ended up testing negative for the Rh factor, and I was very grateful. Around the same time, I think it was around like 10 weeks, I had the option to do an early gender test. And so I went for it because I wanted to know if I was having a boy or girl, so I could kind of prepare as a teacher, and I'm very much a planner. So by week, I want to say 13 or 14, we found out that we were having a boy. They send the place, I don't remember the name of the company that does it, but they basically send you a link in an email. You click the link, and then it has like this big woo reveal. You're having a boy, you're having a girl. Anyway, it said you're having a boy, and I was freaking out. I was so excited, but also terrified. And immediately I knew what I wanted to name him, because my husband and I joked that we wanted to name our son Golden. This is like way back, when we were first, like the beginning of our marriage. And I told him then, this was like 2012, 2013. I said, hey, our first son, we're going to name him Golden. And he's like, ah, ha, ha, ha. Well, anyway, time goes on and I tell him we're going to name him Golden. Once we found out it was a boy, and he was worried. He said, we can't name him Golden unless he has blonde hair. And I said, I don't care. Like, I don't care if he comes out with dark hair. He's going to be a Golden, because our daughter has dark hair and dark eyes. And so anyway, excuse me. Hello, should have brought my water bottle in here. Anyway, did not do that. So anyway, later on in the pregnancy, I had a few other things that were going on. I had, this might be some TMI here. Excuse me. I had rectal prolapse and some vaginal prolapse. Basically, that's where your insides just kind of want to fall out a little bit. So that wasn't fun, but I really tried hard to work on my pelvic floor. And so that happens. Those two things, prolapse, happen. The two types of prolapse can happen usually because your pelvic floor is weak. And that's what my doctor told me. And also later on, especially after having Golden, like I worked my booty off to work on my pelvic floor. Anyway, and it's not just Kegels, it's a lot more than that. So I had to be checked regularly for these things. Another thing that I had, and basically my doctor, she didn't give me a ton of advice. My husband mostly helped me like with advice, but my doctor was like, you gotta sit more. And as a teacher, I was walking around a lot. And also at the same time, the year was 2020 to 2021 and COVID was still going on, right? And so as a teacher, I had to wear a face mask my whole pregnancy. And I can't even tell you, like some of my masks were thick and I was having a hard time breathing as it is being pregnant, you know, like you just do. And then wearing a face mask on top of that. Toward the end of my pregnancy, I kind of stopped wearing a face mask because I just couldn't breathe. Or if I did take it off, I'd be away from my students and I would take off my mask and teach. And oh man, I was just a tired mom, but I somehow pushed through to the end. Let's see what else. I gotta look at my notes. Let's see. I'm on my computer here. Okay. All right, there we go. Okay, sorry, I had to look at my notes. Anyway, another thing that I had, bear with me today. Another thing that I had was an irritable uterus. So some women get this, I think probably more often than not, but like my uterus, and it just feels irritated all the time, just kind of like you're constantly getting Braxton Hicks, and it feels like you're always about ready to go into labor. So when I was probably a month out, 2 weeks to a month out, I think it was 2 weeks from giving birth to Golden, I had another bout of irritable uterus, and I thought I was in labor. It was just like constant contractions, constant. I wouldn't stop, and my belly just kept getting so hard. You can hear my kids calling to me. Hello.
Mom.
Hi.
Look, I draw for you.
Can I see it? I love it. It's so beautiful.
It's for Dad.
Okay, go show him. Can you shut my door?
Okay.
I love that. Shut it all the way. Shut it all the way. Thank you. So that is Golden. He's such a sweetie. Anyway. So yeah, there's that. You know, as we get toward the end of the pregnancy, my appointments got closer and closer together, and I don't know, I was just getting so excited. Everything was great. Everything worked out perfectly, and my appointments, I mean, other than I had some scary things going on during my pregnancy, and you know, morning sickness and all the things. I mean, I was just so grateful to be pregnant. That's one thing I can say, like with both my pregnancies, I have been so grateful. And I actually really like being pregnant. People or women get worried about bouncing back, you know, not really a real thing, but they get worried about being fit after and all that. And I just like feel like I truly tried to embrace every stage of pre-pregnancy, pregnancy, post-pregnancy, the postpartum stuff. Like I understand like people go through some tricky things, but I really tried to enjoy it. Anyway, okay, going back. The closer we got to the birth, it was really exciting. I actually scheduled an induction because I knew that as a teacher, I needed to have a specific day that my sub could come in, because I was basically having a baby 2 weeks before school got out. So I had 2 weeks of sub plans and a binder. And so had it already. It took me months and months and months to prepare. I'll tell you that. Like I needed everything in a binder prepared. I'm just over prepared sometimes. So our last day before having the baby, we had this tradition. We started it with my daughter. Granted, that's Golden's our second kid, so this is only the second time we've done it. Is we always eat at Texas Roadhouse the day before going into labor. And my daughter's birth was just happened sporadically, but my son's was planned birth. So we ate at Texas Roadhouse like we did with my daughter, and we brought her with us, and it was just like a surreal moment of like, holy Yankees. Tomorrow we're gonna be a bigger family. We're gonna have an extra kid. It's wild. And we just sat there. I remember feeling just so many emotions, eating that last meal together. My mother-in-law was with us, my husband's mom. She was wonderful. She actually let us stay in her house that night because we had to drive to Ogden. So we had an option. We can either start in Highland, drive to Ogden, or start in Wyoming, drive to Ogden. The timing was similar, but we still just wanted to be. Also, we wanted our mother-in-law graciously offered to watch our daughter while we had our son. So we that night had dinner, went to her house, stayed the night. She's so nice. She let us sleep in her bed. You know how it goes. Like, oh, I slept like crap. I slept barely anything. I was uncomfortable. I was anxious about the next day. Anyway, slept terribly. Woke up the next morning super early. We had to be at the hospital by like 5 or 6 a.m. because since I was getting induced, they wanted to start all the drugs early. But by the time you get there, you check in, vitals, la da 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 da. They're not giving you Pitocin until 8 a.m. So that was cool. And I just remember being like, whatever. But here's why I loved my second labor. My first one was good, but it felt a little scary. The second one, I was a little bit more mentally prepared, and I knew exactly what I wanted. I went in and I told them, and I am very much like, I don't care if people say, oh, I have an all-natural birth or unmedicated birth. Like birth is natural no matter which way you look at it. And whatever you want to be comfortable during birth, then do it, And I will die on that hill because that's what I believe, and people can disagree, but I don't really care. So we got in, and my friend from my first birth, she told me, if you do end up planning to get an epidural, like get it, like at least request it right when you get there. So that's what I did with my son and with my daughter. And it takes them a few hours to get to your room and give you the epidural, but that's what I planned on doing. And the great thing, the big difference for me between first labor, second labor, is with my son's labor, they totally just gave me free range. They let me drink soda. They let me have candy. Okay, they didn't let me have food, but they let me have candy, like sucky candies. I was eating Jolly Ranchers. So I had Jolly Ranchers. I got unlimited soda, ice. With my first, I could do nothing but little tiny sips of water and ice, and I had nothing to give by the time I had to push. So with my son, I felt way better the whole time because I was getting a little bit of sugar here and there, and that was game changing, I'll tell you what. Anyway, so another thing that we did different is we brought like a tablet, I brought our phones, and we were watching like I don't remember, I mean, I'm not going to go over what shows we were watching. We were watching just a funny comedy the whole time I was in labor. We were just like connecting, talking, watching a show together. It was great. Honestly, it made the time go by very fast. With my daughter's birth, they actually had to, I think, goodness, I should have watched her birth video before this. I'm not really remembering, but I believe they actually broke my water. But with Golden, we really, not a lot happened because they started me on the drugs, I think, at around 8:30. And then around 12:30, I'm reading. Yeah, at 12:30, I got really tired of laying in bed. So I started walking around and doing all that, just walking around the room. And my water was still intact. And then I told Devin, he looks over at me, and I'm hooked up to cords and stuff because I've got like the IV for fluids, and then I also had the epidural. Anyway, I was somehow walking around the room and they had this yoga ball, so I'm like bouncing on it, and then I just start doing squats, I'm just sitting there and Devin's like, he looks over and he says, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm squatting. And I'm just over there squatting. And you have to know something about me. Like that's what I do. Like I lift heavy weights. I'm a weightlifter. And even my whole pregnancy with my daughter, I did weightlifting and working out. And my son, which is funny because going back to my daughter, to my water started leaking. I guess oh, that was it. I forgot about my daughter's birth, but my water actually started leaking on the treadmill. That's how I knew I was going to be going into labor soon. But with my son, sorry, I forgot about that. But with my son, same thing, worked out the whole pregnancy. So it was not abnormal for me just to randomly start doing squats. And I just was getting so bored of being in that room. And I just was like, let's hurry this up. And I want to say I was still like not super, let's see. Yeah, I did not dilate a ton. So I thought, well, maybe, obviously I want my water to break. So I thought maybe if I like do squats and stuff, it'll get my body more into, a rhythm. So I started doing squats. Let's go back to that. I get distracted super easy. So I started doing squats. And then as soon as I start doing squats, I just go squat and my water, poof, just breaks. And all of a sudden I'm like, there's water running down my legs. And I'm like, Devin, my water just broke. He's like, what? I was like, yeah. So I was pretty proud of myself that I did squats until my water broke. So that was pretty funny. Let's see. Okay, so then according to my notes, I didn't really dilate too much more until I probably was like dilated 2. I think I walked in as at a dilated to a 3, or a 2 or 3. And then it says, my water broke at 12:30. And then I didn't dilate much more until 2:30. And then and this is kind of similar to what happened in my daughter's birth, but yeah, it says at 2:30, I went from a 4, so right at 2:30, I was a 4, and then I went from a 4 to a 10 dilation in 3 hours. So it would have been around 5:30. And that is, like I said, that's what happened with my daughter's birth. Like I went from low, super, super high to a 10, and I was just ready to push. Like my body just like, oh, okay, yeah, cool, let's do this. So right at 5:30, I was ready to push, and let's see, but I had to wait. It says I had to wait until 6 o'clock for my doctor to get there. She had a patient at her clinic. And generally there's, nurses in your room and they're like, oh, do you want to try? No, they're very nice. I'm not trying to make them like sound silly, but yeah, they're usually like, do you want to try pushing? And I said, yeah. So, I usually try to start pushing and then the baby's like ready to come out. Yeah, let's see. I will say this is something I didn't write down, but one thing I do know that happened. I had my epidural, right? But then I was feeling and because often what happens is if you dilate super fast, so I went from a 4 to a 10, the drugs are not quite strong enough to catch up to that, because the drugs are basically very methodically put into your system slowly in small little bits, so you can't OD yourself. And so because my body went so quickly and dilated so fast in that window, the drugs were not quite, like I was feeling, and I got really bad back labor, so I was feeling a lot of pain. And like I said, I just want to make sure I'm fully coherent for labor and I'm enjoying it. So I basically said, can you just give me like something for my pain? And they were like, yeah, we'll give you what do they call it, a cocktail. We'll give you a cocktail. I kind of wish I wouldn't have done that, because with my first birth I didn't, and the second birth I did do the cocktail right before pushing, and it literally made me feel high. Like, and I've been, I know what being high is, so I was high, okay, like in this, yeah, okay. And I felt a little bit woozy, and I didn't love that, but it kind of wore out and fizzled out for a little bit, and that was good. But basically once my doctor got there, I want to say she got there, I think, yeah, it was like 30 minutes after she got there, or 30 minutes for her to get there. It says, okay, sorry, I'm just reading my notes. Okay, anyway, so I'm pushing, and I'm a really fast, like, my babies usually come out, like, and they're usually head down, so my babies can come out pretty quick. And Golden came out within a few pushes, just like his sister, and yeah, within 10 minutes, he was out. And they immediately, there's nothing like that euphoric feeling where the baby's born, and all that pressure and pain just goes away, and they have your baby and they put that baby on your chest, it's such a magical thing. It feels, yeah, euphoric. It's a word that's coming to my head, but it's wonderful. It was just a beautiful moment. And then right after they put Golden on my chest, he peed. And with my daughter, she didn't do that. So he was on me, and all of a sudden I feel all this warm fluid like all over myself. And I'm like, what the? And I look down and he's just peeing. Like, I mean, he's chest to chest with me, but all the pee is, it was funny. So the nurses are like, come here, like putting the cloth and stuff. Anyways, funny, good times. Yeah, so then, this is the not so pleasant part, but they were able to, you know, clean him up, and Devin got to hold him and all the things. And my placenta. Okay, so unfortunately this part is not my favorite part, but with my placenta, they have to remove it. And you know, one thing I will say about childbirth is the placenta, and just birthing the placenta can be kind of painful. They're pushing super hard on your belly, really hard. It's a lot of pain. And she had a really hard time getting it out, like a really hard time getting out my placenta. And she was just like, you could tell she was a little bit frustrated. And it took her about 30 minutes to get my placenta out. By the time I feel like she was like literally scraping. Like she had some sort of tool, and I don't remember what it was. I'm just gonna call it a scraper. She used that to just scrape out my placenta. That's what I felt like. So I'm not really sure if that's correct. She put it in the bucket. She showed it to me, and she said, she was showing me the lines. There's like these white lines and things on the placenta. And she's like, yeah. She's like, this is so odd. She said, you see, this is calcified. I'm like, calcified? I've never even heard of a calcified placenta. And she said, yeah. She said, or remind me when you were due. And I was like, you know, I'm like 39-ish weeks, you know, 39 weeks, whatever, one day, or whatever the calculation was. And I said, I'm not overdue. And she said, yeah, that's so weird because, she said, I'm glad you got induced, just because since it is calcified, like, oftentimes with calcification, it can stop nutrients from flowing to the baby. And yeah, she just thought it was super odd. And so I asked her, I'm like, I don't know if it was at that time that I asked her, if it was at a follow-up appointment, but I just remember asking her and saying, is this normal? And she's like, nope, it's not. It's kind of weird. She's like, I usually see it in older patients. You know, at the time, at the time I was 22, the year 2021. So, oh yeah, by the way, the day this happened was May 13th, 2021. Goodness gracious. So I was about 31 years old. And now, you know, like looking back, I'm like, I wonder if I just, like my body was just, you know, I'm an older mom. And so maybe that was it. And, you know, now I'm 34, well, pretty much 34 here in the next, you know, few weeks. But, I think maybe from what I'm understanding about the human body is just like, hey, sometimes that happens, and older women will have things like that happen. So there you go. So that was fun. But yeah, he did great. He was such a sweet boy, and he's continued to be a sweet boy. He's now 3 years old. It's only taken me 3 years to record this. It's crazy. Yeah, it's nuts. So, and to finish off his name, like, you know, at the beginning of this, I talked about how I wanted a name in Golden. My husband joked like, oh, we can't do that if he has brown hair. And he came out and his hair was like a dark blonde. It was really short. It's like a really short hair, but it was like this really almost like a light brown, dark blonde. So I was like, oh, maybe he doesn't have, like, it doesn't look like he has blonde hair. And I'm going to name him Golden anyway. Anyway, named him Golden. And then it just so happened that his hair eventually fell out, and then the new hair that grew back was a very, very white, golden blonde color. So there you go. It was meant to be. It's meant to be. But anyway, that's my story. I'm gonna end it here. There's nothing much more to tell other than he's awesome. He's a wonderful kid, and that's his birth story. Thank you for listening. And this is really not for anyone other than myself, but thank you for, hello, goodbye. Okay, see you later.